Do you have the feeling that there's more horror on TV or more people writing horror than there used to be before? Do you think that horror is something we can all access to? Is it something that everybody understands the same way? Do you think that the Gothic has got anything to do with it? To answer these questions and a lot more, I have created together with my friend Tugce Kutlu, a video podcast divided in 4 parts where we talk about all these questions and a lot more. In our space, Road to Self-Recognition, this 4-part video podcast, is called The Shadowy Truth Behind Modern Horror and Gothic Trends. This is Alice, you are in Gothic Land, and if you want to know more, you're very welcome to watch these 4-part series where you're going to have also some surprises. See you there. We are here today with Tugce talking about the shadowy truth behind modern horror and Gothic trends in our space, The Road to Self-Recognition in Alice in Gothic Land. I mean, this is like a mouthful, but here we go. So we've been talking about if we think there's been like an increase of exposure and watching horror and video films in part 1. Part 2, we talked about the schools. If we think how do you teach this? How do you teach horror? How difficult that was, or how difficult that is nowadays. And in this part 3, I want to talk about what does the level of interest and consumption of horror, also in video games, tell us about the society we are living in nowadays. And you mentioned that before. You mentioned that people come to class maybe playing more video games than not being exposed to books. And so what does that tell you? What is your perception as a society? Are you worried about what's happening? Or do you think, oh, well, we're just adapting and horror is shifting, is changing, is mutating, but it's not going to go anywhere?
Exactly. I'm thinking like the second, the latter. So because, like, as I said, horror starts very early on in the form of, people gathering around the fire, telling stories about, ghosts and monsters and, all the things that go bump in the night. So it started there from, oral stories. From there to literature, and then to films, and now TV shows and video games. And it's really important because these are different mediums. These are different media. So, I mean, I'm not completely a video game person, but my brother is, and he always plays horror video games. And I know that because of him, I know that there there are more and more horror video games are being produced these days, and they are, some of them I actually watched the trailers for, and the production value of those things are spectacular. It's unbelievable, and it's a lot of money that basically went into that. You can see that. And so I was really interested, and at one point I think I thought, like, maybe I could play as well, like, why wouldn't I? But then I realized that I have no time. So I just gave up that dream, and maybe after the PhD I will do some horror video game playing, but not exactly now, because I really don't have the time. But I love that people of all ages are playing horror video games, because it's kind of I think it's kind of like gateway to horror films, because you're kind of getting into that groove, getting into that horror vibe, and then you're playing these horror games, and you're enjoying yourself. Maybe you're scared, but then you're also excited, and you maybe win the game, and you kind of, as I said before, you go through catharsis, and you feel better about yourself, and you feel like you survived something. And that's important as a child, because I remember that one of the first, not one of the, actually the first video game that I bought when I was 12, my brother was 8, and the video game was the Blair Witch Project. So it was our first computer. So it was basically this old white kind of like desktop computer, and then we started this game. I think at that time it seemed really good, like graphics seemed good, but I believe that if you played it now, it's probably shitty, and it just isn't scary. But then it was so scary. It was so scary. Basically, we would hug each other and play like this. So it was the funniest of things. And so my parents, it took a little bit for my parents to realize that we bought a horror game, and then we were just like scared shitless. So they realized it, and they confiscated it. They they took it away from us because we were too scared. And yeah, it was but it was fun times, exciting times. And kind of got us into the groove that is, horror, that horror life. And it was fun to do that, and it also helps you build bonds. It built my sibling bond with my brother. But if you play with a friend or play with a stranger, it can build a bond between you, and that's also important as a kind of like making a society and making kind of a community of horror community. And horror is one of the most inclusive communities of like all genres. So it's I think as a society we are kind of trying to find meaning in the difficult times that we are leading. So horror games, I think, is kind of it's kind of like the not the reason, but they show us that there is meaning to all those things that are happening. And the meaning behind that is that if we survive this, we can survive anything as a society. And horror always tells us that we can survive. And so I find it really important that these kinds of messages are being delivered by films or video games. It doesn't matter. the thing that matters is that we understand the message as a society, that we
Yeah.
understand that we can survive, we can go on.
Yeah, no, you're so right. You explained this about your brother, and you took me back in time. And also, I have a sister,
Hmm.
but we are like 11 years apart. So,
Oh,
and she's the gamer. I don't play. Basically, my first computer was Pac-Man, you know, and it was, I'm that ancient, you know. But no, she she still is a gamer, and in
yeah.
fact, she has a chronic illness that has kept her at home for many years and not socializing physically with people. And thanks
Hmm.
through into this the computer gaming in groups, she's
Yeah.
now in Discord and she plays with her friends in Madrid. And we live in
Right.
Barcelona. She's been able to be sane and overcome the monster of the illness that she had, that she's getting over now, because of video games. But also when we were younger and she started playing, and the first video games I remember were, well, there was the fighting ones, but the horror one was Resident Evil. That was the one that then turned
Yeah,
into a
Resident Evil.
film. And when it became a film, I thought, this is insane.
Yeah,
It's not the other way around. It used to be the film and then the game. And then
exactly.
this changed the game again. It was a game changer. And I thought that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of videos, I think, talking about Resident Evil precisely because it changed something in people's minds and in their habits and everything.
Mhm.
And she was
Yeah.
so much into this game that I didn't play, but I sat down and I used to watch her play. I was like a voyeur, which is like watching her play. And and I got excited with her. I was like, just be careful. Just what did you do to do that? And she was doing everything, but like watching a
Yeah.
film. And I remember she was so obsessed with this to a point that we weren't even worried. My mom was like really, really worried about it. That she
Yeah.
was picking up plants in the street. She went, "Oh yeah, I'm going to pick a plant to eat it," because she was so much in the game for so long.
Oh my
And
God.
and then it helped us bond that. And then there was another game, Dracula, that you had to decipher.
Mm.
It was like a quest, and it was really a beautiful game, as you said, again, images, and there's a
Yeah.
storyline, and then you have to decipher these quizzes and these puzzles. And then we helped each other because, oh, do you know the answer of that? Yes, I do. And yeah, I've done something in the video game.
Yeah.
But
Bonding time.
exactly, and I not thought that we were actually very close. And I have memories of my sister, really good memories, and they go back to the video games.
Yeah.
And now, as an adult, she shares her list with my son. So nephew and auntie are sharing
Oh my
these
God.
video
Beautiful.
game. It's fantastic, and he's learning
Beautiful.
about these video games. He was fed above Fortnite, and now he's into Hollow Knight, and he's into other games that are really gothic. Some of them are a bit dark, and he finds that sometimes his friends in the school are not in the same league because he's like somewhere else, which can actually create a gap with the friends. So that's the downside if they're not playing the same thing. But it's funny how horror can show itself in different forms
Yeah, it does. It
and
does.
get
I
people
mean,
together.
yeah, it gets people together, and I think it's really wonderful. And as you said um, before it was film and then video game, but now it's like video game, film. And
Yeah.
it happened for Resident Evil, it happened for Silent Hill, it
Yeah.
happened for The Last of Us now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of horror games are being turned into films and TV shows, and that goes on to show how successful they are.
Yeah.
That people want to play them, but also want to see them on screen, like watch something they have played before. So
Yeah.
that's a really interesting phenomena, I think. And all these horror horror kind of like video games are gaining momentum in different media as well.
Yeah.
The success of The Last of Us basically shows us that. And yeah, I think video games, it's just the easiest way to kind of find that teenager kind of community, because video games are generally, not always, but generally are being played by teenagers,
Yeah.
and maybe even younger people,
Yeah.
and they are really into that. I know that because one of my cousins is like 17, and he's been playing video games like since
Forever.
forever. I mean, since I've known him. So basically, he just came out of the womb with video game joysticks or something like that. I feel like that. And he's brilliant. He's like really brilliant, and he loves his video games. And I wasn't really sure like what kind of impact video games had on him.
Yeah.
So something happened this summer where we were together, and I know that he plays car games, such as Need for Speed, Formula One, and he plays them all the time. But I didn't know what that meant. So we went go-karting, and he just destroyed me. I have a driving license. He doesn't. He's like 16. And he just destroyed me with the car. And I realized that these games have
Wow.
something in the real world as well. Like they help us. They help us learn stuff in real life. So that was really interesting. So I think that horror games can help us in that way as well.
Yeah.
Because if they help us survive things, they help us cope with things. So maybe in video game, but also in real life, they can help.
Yeah.
Why not?
No, not so true, because as we were saying, there are some video games that they have storylines, and going back to Resident Evil, because it's the one that I know more. It's all about a virus. And what have we been going through? We've been going through a virus, and there are many viruses out there, and there's been many pandemics out there, and it all starts in the laboratory, and it's all something going wrong, and it's political, and it's money, and it's so close to our reality that I thought, this is no game. At the time, I was already suspicious. This is not really a game. This is a warning. This is futuristic. This is telling us this can happen. What would you do? And the fact that there might be people there, or that there are people there creating bunkers, it tells us that in case there's a zombie apocalypse, there might not be a zombie apocalypse, but there might be an apocalypse of some kind of toxicity there in the air, or something that we
climate change.
Exactly, something that can turn us into a different person, because it affects our cognition, and then we cease to be reasonable, and God knows, we can start here now, maybe going a bit off being a bit too not realistic, but these things make us wonder and to be ready for things, but also might make us, if at some point we become, or these people become future scientists, to be careful with what they do. It could also work the other way, no? It's like, stop playing God and be more careful than you are. But at the moment that we're playing with all these things, sometimes we just too daredevil, and we're human beings, always experimenting and always wanting to know more about the existence and about how to dominate the world and nature. But so does it kind of worry you? I mean, you were saying that you were maybe worried about your nephew being too exposed, but does it worry you, or should people be worried about, I've got contacts that say, oof, Netflix, there's a lot of horror production, that's no good. Is that something that scares you, or is for you more like a sign of the times we're living in?
Yeah, I think it's more of more the sign of the times, because I mean, before platforms and video games, there were films and there were novels. There were always things that would agitate people.
Yeah.
And so this is nothing new. Just the medium is new. Like platform is new, for example, like video game is new. So I don't think that in the long run it's too dangerous, because there's still, parents control what we gain access to, what children gain access to, and there are a lot of, parental controls on computers and all that. You can also control who's watching what. So I don't think we should be worrying about it too much. I mean, horror has always been around and will always be around. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
No, it's just probably now it's better in a way to be aware of it and to know more about it, because it helps us also know more about ourselves, which at the end is bringing light in the darkness, in darkness, isn't it? So
yeah, we can't run away from horror forever.
No.
Just like we can't run away from our fears forever.
Exactly. We will be neglecting a part of us, and then we will be unbalanced. Yeah, absolutely. So no worries, people. Horror is good, as like everything in the right measure, and it can help us bonding. I mean, the final message for this part 3 really is it can be a bonding activity, as we saw in this little slide. Let's bring back the little slide
siblings.
With the siblings playing. Exactly.
That's me and my brother, basically.
Exactly. You see, I had my telepathy working there.
Exactly. So, you did.
It's like that, isn't it? It helps us bond, and it helps us if you are worried or you fear something at that time. You've got your sister, your brother there to actually give you a hug. So it's fantastic.
This is us playing the Blair Witch.
My goodness, you're looking like, oh, what's gonna come next?
What's gonna come next?
What's gonna come next? Oh dear.
Not the witch, please, not the witch.
Not the witch. So fantastic. So this is we've covered now question 3. And for those who haven't seen it, we have part 1 and 2. And if you want to follow Tugce, please do on Twitter. She's there. Is Tugce Kutlu 88, and also you can find on Instagram. Is T_Kutlu 88. And of course, as always, if you found this video useful, you found it enlightening, you've learned some things, you think you can share it with anybody as well, please support us. We have a Kofi page. It also is on my page, but it will be shared with Tugce if you donate. And it's Alice Gothic Land 1402. And for those who are enjoying these talks and they're enjoying this presentation today, we are also thinking of going beyond in the summer and give you the chance to come talk to us and have a look at these fantastic seminars that we're preparing. So coming soon, we have the Shadowy Truth behind modern horror and Gothic trends, where we're going to be talking about these episodes, but more extended, these parts. So if you want to know more about horror, the Gothic in modern times, a little bit of the origins, why we're consuming so much horror, and what is the psychology behind it, what can that tell us about ourselves, and our shadows of fears, and looking into the last 50 years what's been happening as well. Because there are studies, but there's not like one of the most recent studies we have here, like Teaching the Gothic, that I've not mentioned before. This is not just for the Gothic, we can also use it for horror, but you might have to tell us, Tugce, if I'm right or wrong, if there are any more books like these in the market nowadays, because these pretty much covers up to the last 10 years, maybe just before the pandemic. And I think there are going to be, or they're going to be, or there will be in the future newer productions to consider what's happening in horror and in the Gothic in these last recent years. And I think in a way, this is what I would like, or we would like to cover with people if they come to the seminar as well, just this observation, something that's not there in the market that you're not going to find anywhere because it's all in process. So we're going to be your mentors, and you'll have access to us to ask us questions directly, This is the waiting list. So when you come and you sign up, with your first name, last name, will be in contact, and we'll tell you more about this program if you're interested in. And thank you again, Tugce. So we're gonna be running on to part 4 in the last part. And yes, so I'll see you in next part. And
see you.
See you in a moment. Bye.